Today we are having a look at Mohammed's first place Springfest Cardiff deck profile. So our team, Mohammed, Jay and I went first place at Springfest Cardiff right after the Premium Collection release, and we've already done my Luard profile, Jay's Neo Nectar profile, and now we're wrapping things up with Mohammed's OTT profile. Now, as you can see in this picture at the top right there, Mohammed has gone to Worlds twice already in a row, and now he has yet another top to add to his repertoire. So he's a really good player. He has been topping so goddamn much with OTT for so long. Also some golds and Genesis as far as I'm aware, but like OTT is his thing. So when you see something in this list and you're like, huh? He has very good reasons for the things he does. So first of all, he wants me to shout out Thomas for the 4th stamped Ichi, otherwise the deck wouldn't have been max rarity. And you know, if you're like a clan one trick, really hardcore into one clan, maxing can be important for you, and so that 4th Ichi was important. Also, shout outs to the boys at Dark Sphere is what he asked me to say. Now, we'll go from left to right and from top to bottom and just go card by card. So first of all, we see Lozenge Magus, the starter, just a V starter. You ride, you draw. He did at one point consider Magical Calico, the cat, which we also saw top in Japan before. He played in G set 5, I believe, but then he didn't end up going for it because it doesn't help early game quite as much, and the current meta does have a strong early game sense. Then we see Susanoo, the grade 3. Mohammed has been topping with Susanoo and Oracle and Tankman in his deck for so long, even when everyone else was saying, oh, we have to play Battle Sister, he went, nope, we're going for this. So there's one Susanoo in the deck. He says it's usually the better grade 3 because it's a free draw. However, he did not run the recyclable PGs in the grade 1 lineup, so he still saw value in getting the Protect marker from Imperial Daughter, and I believe also one Hexagonal Magus we see over there. Now, due to the Stride Assist and the elongated grade 2 game, it does feel like he's running 3 Susanoo, he says, because he will usually see it anyway. Next up, as mentioned, we have the Hexa, we have the Imperial Daughter. They still have value creating those Protect markers against various decks in the meta, and so they are pretty stable by now. Now, on the next row, we have the 4 Rectangle Magus, which is a very important early game card. I don't think any OTT list doesn't run it right now. You're able to draw, you're able to stack the deck. It's a big beat stick if you start seeing triggers in the early game. There's really no reason not to run it. We also see 2 of the Oracle grade 2, which gains 2k power. Now, as you will notice as we go through the profile, there are a lot of Oracle cards in this deck, and so the more Oracle cards you have, the better certain other Oracle cards start working. So basically, he has a very big Oracle engine and then a very lean staple OTT engine in here. So this one is a good ride because it becomes 10k against stuff like Ezel, against other decks that try to grade 2 game. The only 2 decks that don't really care because they themselves are also 10k base and make numbers at that base are Neo Nectar and Luard, but everything else does suffer quite a bit against that 10k base. Now, you could also run, of course, regular 10k base, but then you don't have the Oracle cards, which all help each other. Next up in the grade 2 lineup, we also see Tankman. This has been his ace card for so damn long. He says it's his ace in the hole. It builds up a hand from something that feels incomplete to something more playable. Because what it does is it lets you draw 2 cards and then discard an Oracle card. So you're essentially just fixing hand all the time. And because so many cards in his deck do have Oracle, that doesn't really lead to any problems. He says the filter is stronger than Rectangle Magus, who does Siphon Soul, clashing at times with Ophidian, which is another grade 1 in the deck. Rectangle draws 1 and drives the other, while Tankman draws 2 and then you drive the 3rd card in, making it easier to find what you need over being a powerhouse. He also says he sometimes likes to ride the Tankman if he has no Oracle grade 2, depending on whether his hand needs a fix or if it is safe. And another interesting thing that we actually discussed in real life is that if you ride Tankman, you can now swing under things. So if at any point you need to do that against certain decks, that is also a play you can do, which you couldn't do with the typical 9k. However, given the current format, there's more aggro, so the reason for doing that is maybe less pronounced right now than in other formats. Now, we also see 4 Nanase, an other Oracle grade 2 card, but unlike other Oracle cards in here that we don't see in many OTT builds, this one actually is becoming pretty stable. The reason is that it becomes very, very big on an Ichi turn. So Ichi boosts cards depending on your hand size, but Nanase herself also boosts depending on your hand size. So you are gaining insane amounts of power the bigger your hand becomes. Also, If they let it hit, you now get to start drawing, which just is a very, very painful thing in the early game. Sometimes you just force your opponent to guard awkwardly just so this doesn't go off. Only the power gain is actually GB restricted, the other one is not. Now, going into the grade 1 lineup, he says that the high amount of 6Ks makes it much easier to want to pass or just no pass Ezel when he calls something else to the board. So damage denying Ezel can be useful depending on the matchup, depending on the game state. And so as you see, there are 8 grade 1s with 6k. Now what is pretty interesting here, he is running the counter charge PG. And this is a pretty funny story. Mohammed told us about this card a bit earlier, I think 2 weeks before the event, going, oh, I think I'll be running CC PGs. And no one did that. So me and Jay were like, why? Why would you do that? And he started talking about why, and we were like, no way. But then he just proves that it works. And this happens so often with him. He will say some outlandish idea. I will challenge him, going like, are you sure about that? And then we will playtest, and I'll be like, okay, you're right. So this was a really interesting thing. OTT does eat Counterblast a lot, because as you can see, the Tankman eats CB, the Rectangle eats CB, Imperial Daughter eats CB, the Nanase on-hit eats CB, all the Ichis eat CB, everything eats CB. And if you want to run Cone Magus, you do need to know the top card. And as you can see, this list doesn't run Kuor nor Tetra, so you don't actually know the top card as often as you do in other decks. So the CCPG, so you can at least get some CB back, regardless of if you know the top card. He did consider the Oracle Keyword PG to get it back to hand, but then in the end just chose this option. Next up we have Ophidian, the Oracle Snake. Now it has the skill with which you can stride for free. And sure, that's like a fun skill, but the second skill is what really matters. You can place it, Soul Blast 1 and draw a card as long as you have an Oracle Vanguard. This makes it so you can build a field and not change your hand size, so you can really play the early game very well. We know back in the day when Grand Blue played 7 Cs but not the grade 1 variant, just 7 Cs with Ruin Shade, they also ran the Dancing Cutlass, which was Soul Blast 2 to draw a card when it was placed. This way you could build a board, rush hard, and not lose hand for it. This card does that, but better. We see 2 Stride Fodder because the game did speed up quite a bit, and so you won't necessarily always be at the GB2 to use Ophidian. We also see only 6 grade 3s in the lineup, so that can still be pretty important. We also see 4 Nazuna, the grade 1, yet another Oracle card. Mohammed loves his Oracle cards. Just like Nanase, she can also pump up something depending on the hand size. So once again, stacking together with Ichi to make gigantic beatsticks, but beyond that, she can also boost something and then afterwards get rid of her and you draw a card. So once again, you can rush, but then self-replace and keep your hand intact. As you can see, many cards in this deck can actually do that, be placed, but still plus, so you have a full field to play the early game and feel totally fine about it. And once again, because it is an Oracle grade 1, Ophidian does have the correct Oracle targets so that you can actually use the skill. Next up, we have the trigger lineup. It's kind of cut off, but there's 4 efficient Carp in there, the stand trigger, which does catch some people off guard, but it's also very strong in the early game. You can place it, swing with it, and at the end of the turn, get rid of it, check top, put it on top of or bottom, and then draw a card. If your hand is a bit trigger flooded, you still have pieces to call, you still get to play the early game, you get to get rid of your field and nothing in your hand changed. You see, this is something that keeps on popping up once again. And I believe it's also an Oracle card, so it could also be this card for Tankman if you really have to, but I'd have to double check there. Overall, this just fixes hand, as does the rest of the deck, and that makes it so goddamn consistent, which meant Mohammed went completely undefeated said day. Obviously, it is very hard to go completely undefeated in a card game, because RNG does exist. There are worse matchups, there are brick hands, and so neither me nor Jay went totally undefeated. Obviously the team did, but Mohammed did as a whole. So that is mind-blowing, but you can see this deck is so goddamn consistent that it just worked. Now, the next trigger, we have 3 Psychic Bird, the one that goes into Soul to then draw a card. Once again, you can fix your hand with this. Another neat little trick you can do is, if Rectangle Magus didn't stack a trigger on top, you could still use this card to go into soul and draw, so you know, oh, the non-trigger is at least gone and you have one more chance of hitting a trigger. It's kind of like having a twin drive there. Next we have 4 of the Premium Collection crit. Of course, that's very nice because you can feel soul, you can fix your hand even more. He also says that it's useful because you get to call it early, swing a little bit with it, knowing that you will get that card in your hand back at some point in the game. There's also 1 Oracle Guardian Nike. That was, I believe, a Psychic Bird at first, but he wanted to just make people think he was running some other type of lineup. That was just, you know, a little trick. And then we see 2-2 on the heels. Now, one interesting thing to note, we already said it before, we don't see a Tetra in this list, and he says that it's not actually that needed. If he needs to stack the deck, Rectangle Magus already does it for him, and Tetra really does nothing in the early game, and I can see that argument. Personally, I'm a fan of Tetra Magus, but he didn't see the need, and once again, the results are there. I really wish he could do this deck profile with me right here, but sadly, geographical location just doesn't allow it. So going to the G zone, we see 4 of the new Ichi. 1 is kind of tucked under the Imperial Dollar, but there are 4. You really need a 4. 4 of the old Ichi as well, in SP, of course, maxed out. We see 1 Ultima. It's no longer that insane, but it's still an option. We see 1 of the unhit Oracle Stride. If someone desperately needs the damage and you just have no setup for Ichi, this is an option. You are giving them the choice to give you free as hell resources or not get damage to do their own plays. We see 1 Susanoo, which I believe he put in just because he wanted to have a Susanoo in the deck. Ichi is really the star here. We see 2 Bavarois. Can help when you are being bum rushed hard and you just need to draw a few more cards against stuff like Neo Nectar, against stuff like maybe Luard. All these kinds of very aggressive decks on their first stride. We see Sio Amaterasu, just a very big free G-Guard, probably one of the best ones the clan has, or even one of the best ones in the game. And then 1 Lozenge Apex, which just gets gigantic. So this is his list. I think it's actually amazing how every single time he just makes something totally different from other people and makes it work. So hope you found this interesting. If you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel and click the bell button to stay up to date. Like the video if you liked the video and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I will see you soon. Ciao.